How does one open up on a first episode of a podcast? Oh shit, I'm recording. Hello there, and welcome to It Sure Is a Podcast. Name is pretty much the bottom of the barrel pick. Every other idea I had literally was taken by someone or some variation, as I spend tireless hours going through Google and seeing what names are taken, what names are not taken. So here we are. Welcome. First episode. It Sure Is a Podcast. Right now, I'm literally recording this in my basement. And to be honest, it was going to be called Basement Dweller or something like that. But that was taken. So I started to use other elements of what I'm going to bring to the table, and all the names are taken. Everything. Every good name. So, it sure is a podcast. That's what you get. Don't blame me. Blame all the other people who are creative before me. Oh, and I don't think sniffing is good on podcasts either, because that gets picked up. So, welcome. What's on offer here for everyone listening is pretty much my creative nut. I really regret saying that after I said it. Like, I come from a background that is very creative. I went to art school for 5 years, then pursued some different kind of schooling, and, now I'm in my late 20s. Here I am, stuck in the quarantine, like a lot of people. And right now, I just want to get some content out there, because I always really like making this stuff. But it's one of those things where you're always kind of nervous about, what do I do? Do I make it, focused on only one thing? Do I base it off of this? Do I make a variety podcast? And to be honest, in my opinion, variety podcasts suck the biggest wiener. Just because there's no points and just two people show up and they just talk into a mic. Now, it's funny sometimes, but then other times it gets into really heavy political discussions or just stuff about going on in the world. And I'm not going to say that this podcast will be excluding that. That might happen. But the definite focus is to kind of throw out creative ideas, throw out, different ways to approach things whenever pursuing a creative endeavor, very similar to this podcast in itself, which has been a long time coming. It's been brewing up in my brain. And here we are, getting the first episode done. And this isn't just going to be, me talking. I definitely have people lined up to come on and talk. I have short stories, kind of horror short stories that I'm going to be reading out. General nerd talk, video games, board games, D&D, all that good stuff. Because when you break it down, I'm just a nerd that lives in his basement. And right now, I live with some people. So, podcasts are going to be a little spaced out until, I get used to the thing. Sorry, I had to drink some coffee. It's early here. And also, work a full-time job, which definitely I won't be talking about too much. It's not very interesting, honestly. And not really the focus of the podcast here. And actually, those are all the bullet points I had for what we're going to be talking about on the podcast and all the things that we're going to have here, which is exciting. And if you're listening to it, I definitely appreciate it. And there are plans to kind of expand some stuff if this picks up legs, but also, I'm just a small fish in a big pond. So who knows where this will go. And, it'd be kind of weird for me to start throwing out incentives and all this stuff right out the gate when you're kind of looking at this and you're like, I don't even know if I want to finish listening to this, because this guy just had a really long intro kind of telling me what we're talking about, but we haven't talked about it. And you're right. You're definitely right. But I'm going to tell you, this whole quarantine thing, and if you're listening to this in the future, this is the 2020 quarantine from the coronavirus, the COVID-19, however you want to call it. It has been a very interesting experience indeed, because I've been stuck at home, right? And I actually just kind of discovered that we have an air fryer, and no one told me about this. Like, literally, I didn't really know what an air fryer looked like. And when I found this thing, I looked up the name of it, and I didn't know how to work it, and everyone's talking about how good food is in an air fryer. And then all of a sudden, there's one in the house, so everything's getting air fried. And it's delicious. Like, I can't stress how good an air fryer is. It is amazing. Amazing piece of technology. Like, out of all the things that I've come across, like, definitely that is just incredible. And I'm trying to think, like, what meals haven't I tossed in the air fryer? But also right now during quarantine, I decided to be a dum-dum and go ahead and go on the paleo diet, because I'm a little bit of a thick boy. Thick with usually 2 C's is the way to go, but I might be rocking 4. It's been going good. I feel great. But it's just kind of one of those things where, man, I'm just... Like, when you get used to not eating that processed food that you get from... Let's say you get the food from, like, McDonald's or any fast food joint. Like, when you get used to that and then you try it again, it doesn't taste as good as you remember. And that's what sucks. Because when you do this, you don't even have that real cheat day, quote unquote, that everyone loves to have. And, like, when you don't have that cheat day, you know, you're like, ah, crap, I'm in it. I'm in it to win it, or I'm just in it until... I'll be honest, I miss bread. Like, I just want to take, like, 2 loaves of bread and just, like, slap whatever I can find in the fridge, put it in between there, and just eat the whole thing. Like, bread, it holds so much together. I know a lot of people say about, like, diets, and it's all based on your body type and how your body handles stuff. And I did the paleo before, and I actually lost a lot of weight. And then I actually got comfortable with myself, which is an odd thing to say, but I was like, oh, I don't care if I'm fat, whatever. And, you know, then I gained that weight back, and now I'm at a point where I'm still comfortable with myself, but I'm like, man, during quarantine, you're just sitting around the house a lot, you know? And every time you hear something good on the news, it's always followed up by something bad or something prolonging it. So instead of me waiting for, like, I'm just going to wait till this quarantine's over, I'm like, all right, we're doing something right now. And actually, what kind of blows my mind is, like, when you start eating better and you don't really do much in a day, you're not really hungry at all. Just replace that with drinking water. Like, and at that point, you just get filled up. And also, you're probably sitting there like, this guy's just talking about how he does a diet. How is this podcast worthy? And it is and it isn't. Because also what I want to bring to this podcast space is, like, nerds in the real world. This is just stuff we go through along with our little community of games that we really enjoy and stuff like that. I don't know. Which is odd. It's always odd for a first episode. And I've seen a lot of people do podcasts on their own on solo. So I'm thinking, like, why can I do that? You know? Some people do that and they got a lot to talk about. And geez, let me tell you, I can just talk about shit for hours. So let me give you a little scope of, like, the interests that I have. An interest that will be on the thing is board games, definitely. I'll definitely be kind of bringing a lot of people who are interested in board games. Like, definitely the one that me and my buds play the most is Arkham Horror. If you haven't heard of that one, it is a cooperative game, and you're set up in the little town of Arkham. And throughout the turns, you can take actions to either get rid of monsters or gather clues, and there's different scenarios for every time you play. And what you got there is different builds for different characters because there's all kinds of different characters that you can pick. Some are really good at getting clues, which is the best way to progress the story positively compared to if you just get a bunch of bad stuff that happens, it'll progress the story negatively. And it's a real fun time with all your friends. You're all sitting around, you're all chatting, you're all interacting, you're all trying to figure out what kind of way you can handle this situation. Even if you do the same thing, the same campaign, we even do a challenge where you pick all the characters that are, notably the worst, and then we kind of run with that, which never usually ends up well, but it makes us really think and makes us strategize with each other, which that is something that I definitely feel has been missing from gaming for the longest time, where that interaction and that positive community and working together as a team. Like, definitely games these days really focus on, I guess I'm talking more video games, because if you're playing a board game, usually you are just kind of working as a team. And if you're playing a board game together, you either already know each other and are friends, or you're getting to know each other. So no one's going to be inherently a dick. But definitely in online games, it's a lot easier to be a dick to people. Which is frustrating because we're all just there to play a game. Especially the modern shooters like Valorant, Overwatch, definitely. And I used to play a lot of Overwatch because it was like a modern take on Team Fortress 2, which I still play quite a bit. But, Team Fortress 2 has a pretty alright community, but also there's a lot of terrible people in it, but they're more focused on memes compared to actually just being mean and hurtful to other people. Overwatch, that's all they are. And how Blizzard's running that, they're running that thing into the ground real hard. And I know IGN gave it a 10 out of 10 recently. And that blew my mind. I was like, excuse me, what? That is not a 10 out of 10 experience. They always add a new hero and it always breaks the game. So then the game is progressively broken. And every time you add a new hero that does different roles, it combines two roles, you make the other heroes obsolete, which that's not how you do it, and I'm not a game designer in that sense. I got a project here or there working with some people, so hopefully one day I'll be like, I'm a game designer and I can have an opinion, but right now definitely I do not. But that's just my feels on it. Which other board games that are really good is the Bloodborne board game based off the game for PS4. That one is actually pretty easy to pick up, easy to learn, and you're cooperating together and also kind of fighting against each other too, which is a very interesting mechanic. You are always trying to figure out, ways that you can kind of form a little alliance and work with someone to kill the monster, but also at the same time, when it gets down to it, closer to the end of the round, you want to have the most blood echoes, which you gather from killing monsters and doing stuff like that. So at that point, you're kind of like, okay, so I'm going to use this item that will screw everyone over so I can attack and get the most blood echoes. Which that is a very, very good time. Another board game that we absolutely love is Ticket to Ride and Settlers of Catan. I hope you're writing this down, taking notes, because these are good-ass board games. I don't know, if some EMP bomb went off and we had no electronics, you bet I'd be grinding those games out like it was a MMO or something like that. Those games are just fun. And Ticket to Ride is the easiest. I almost see Ticket to Ride as the kind of that gateway game for people who might not know much about board games like that, where they are introduced to kind of not complicated, but different kind of mechanics compared to regular board games like Sorry or Trouble and, stuff like that. Which, there's nothing wrong with those games, but, those games are old news. I'm here talking about Gloomhaven and, oh god, Gloomhaven. I don't know if you've ever played that. I've played it once. It's kind of like a D&D campaign, but everything's already set up. Like, play sessions of that take forever. Like, they really do. And it's just kind of... It's super fun, but at the end of it, you are mentally exhausted. I don't know if anyone else ever feels like that about playing D&D, where at the end of it, you are mentally exhausted, and you're like, I need a nap. Dude, that was too much. That just might be me, because I actually really like the role-playing aspect of it. You know, that's probably like the nerdiest thing we can get to. Like, when I create a character, I think of how they would act in the situation and all this stuff, which definitely is a key part of the experience. But then sometimes, you know, people just like to joke around and just act goofy, which is totally fine. You know, there's different ways to play it, and there's no right or wrong way. But I prefer the having the, you know, role-playing experience and being able to create a character, because I mean, I initially went to school for that. So, you know, character creating, lore building, oh my gosh, it is all just the best. And what sucks is during quarantine, it's super difficult to play board games with people, because you actually need people in your general area. And every time, you know, me and my friends try to hang out, something happens, or they have a situation in the family where they don't want to expose people, which I get. It's totally a thing. And you just got to be careful out there and just make sure you're not getting other people sick. You know, just play it safe, play it smart, wash your hands. And there'll be a time where we look back on this and I'll have a good hearty laugh. And I really hope so. It's me being super positive. But I think things are going to be really different. Who's texting me? Who texted me? You damn well I don't have any friends. I'm making a podcast on my own, for God's sakes. It's actually really sad how I put that. But just be safe out there. Be smart. Be kind to each other. You know, kindness. It's one thing that, you know, everyone could use right now. Oh, yeah. Back to board games. I will say one game that isn't my favorite is the Ticket to Ride. I think it was like Europe or something. And a lot of people do like that one, and they might like that even better. But what they do is they kind of add mechanics to it where it just, you know, it's playing the original game with extra steps, as Rick and Morty, you know, once stated. You know, it's playing the regular game, but now, oh, these things do different things. And if you want to build this, you have to draw the top 2 cards off the train deck. And if they match your cards, then you have to pay more. I'm the type of person where I just would like a very simple gameplay loop. And I would very much like to master that simple gameplay loop. I don't need all these extra steps from something I already had before. You know, a lot of games that I actually gravitate to as I'm getting older is definitely those kind of, all right, don't nobody get mad and crucify me or anything, but kind of those games as a service or single player RPGs. Those are the two that I really gravitate to, because there's a progress, there's progression, but also sometimes I really like just the weird. And I don't know if you just heard my cat. My cat just wandered in. Yeah, super professional podcast here. And I just lost my train of thought. Now there's a big pause of silence. And they're sitting like, what's this guy doing? He doesn't even remember what he was talking about. And he might be using this segment to remember what he was talking. Oh, yes. All right, the kind of games I like. Yeah, definitely the kind of games that I like are like kind of the paid service, but usually they're free to play titles, and they kind of build off of one central idea. Like, I'm talking about your Warframes, your Destiny 2s. There's definitely other ones, but those are the two that I mainly play. But also I play a lot of like The Witcher 3, which I absolutely love. And there'll probably be a whole podcast dedicated to me just talking about how wonderful that game is and all the cool stuff it does. And also those kind of indie games that are really short experiences, but kind of are like a narrative experience. And then there's sometimes where their games are like, oh, it's a game, but really it's just a movie, like those Beyond Two Souls, Heavy Rain, stuff like that. And those aren't for me because that's just a movie. And if I'm going to watch a movie, I'm just going to sit there and watch a movie. I don't want to do button prompts. And also, yeah, actually, really, those are the games I like right now. And then anything by Nintendo. Like, Nintendo, they make some good stuff. And since they've been putting out some games on the Switch, oh, man, that is some really good stuff. I don't know, some of my favorite games of the last generation have been like Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, stuff like that. It's just absolutely fantastic. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Oh man, this coffee's disgusting. No, I don't. All right. I'm gonna throw this out there. If anyone listening has a Keurig, like, does your Keurig coffee taste different than coffee out of like, like an old coffee maker, that big pot? Because I swear the coffee tastes different. Right now, all we have is a Keurig, and I'm just too lazy to go get a coffee pot and do that whole process. But I think it's better. Like, I don't know. It's just this coffee tastes like plastic almost. And I've cleaned it out. I've done the filtration stuff. I've went through all those steps. And the coffee still tastes just weird. Which I absolutely don't know if that is, normal. Is it just my coffee maker? Or, this... I've been ingesting a lot of coffee during quarantine in between playing games and also working from home. But actually, this whole week, I'm off. I took some vacation because a big old corporation purchased my agency I work for. And now I'm looking around and just seeing some stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I probably won't have vacation days or I'll start losing stuff. So you know what? I'm going to spend it now. I'm going to enjoy my time. Since I'm working from home, there's not too much that is at the moment super urgent to get done, And there's definitely people out there in the field who are still going to work and everything, which, I couldn't even imagine working my old jobs at, like, in this environment. I couldn't imagine. I'm actually super lucky where I'm at right now. But enough about work stuff. Work stuff's boring. Work stuff is the stressor here. I'm here to talk about nerd shit. Nerd stuff. And actually, interestingly enough, I've recently purchased myself one of the fancy gaming computers. And let me tell you, like, I have come over to the Master PC race. PC Master Race, however you want to put that. It's delightful. There's just a lot of options at any given time. It's just neat. And I'm not bash anyone, if you'd like to play a game, play what you play on what you got. But this has also opened a door to a lot of new opportunities in different kind of games. And my job for games is definitely community. If it's a multiplayer game, if it's single player, I don't give a crap about community. But if it's a multiplayer focused game, I like to play with other people. That's how we socialize. It's like if I am able to play a few matches with someone and talk with them on the mic, that's me socializing for a day. Yes, introverts for the win. That's how we socialize. And that's how we're doing so great during this pandemic. But Deep Rock Galactic is actually a fantastic little time. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it or played it. Let me give you the rundown. Deep Rock Galactic is first-person shooter, but kind of with the the random generation, randomly generated, however you want to put that, of Minecraft or maybe we'll even go No Man's Sky with just how some of the biomes look. What you do is you get a team of four little dwarves. And there's different classes: the gunner, the scout, the engineer, and then the driller. Which the driller drills. The scout can move around pretty quick. The engineer can put down platforms, and the gunner can make zip lines for everyone. So you and your little team are exploring these caves, and you're mining these resources. And every time you go to a cave, it has a certain resource you want to look for, and then a bonus resource. And then stuff can organically happen. Or like, oh my gosh, I stumbled onto this kind of nest here. So instead of, hey, let's just gather all this gold and get out of here, you're looking for gold, and when you find it, you accidentally stumble onto a nest of these giant, crab-looking spider creatures, which are very annoying to fight off. And it's very super cool. I'm really good at English. It's just a really enjoyable time. And you're also able to just have a laugh. And even if you fail the mission, you still get rewarded pretty handsomely. Like, considering other games that I played where when you lose, you keep only one thing and the rest is gone. Which is also a thing I hate. With a busy schedule I have, and literally, I'm going to do a few episodes of the podcast, and then I got adult stuff to do all day. I hate having my time wasted. I hate when games do that. I hate when people do that. I want to be rewarded for the time I put in. Even if I just hop on, I do, 2 missions in Deep Rock Galactic. I'm getting rewarded. I'm getting materials. I'm getting money. I'm building up my rank a little bit. It's a real good time. And every time that I have played, I have come across this kind of, tradition, or how the community always greets each other, where when you press the V key, the dwarf starts screaming, "Rock and stone!" And they're all throwing up their axes. And every time someone joins your mission, or you're successful, or you find something, everyone just starts spamming that key and everyone's yelling. And it's just such a good time. And I know some YouTubers actually did some really good reviews on it. And actually, another point we'll come back to is the whole YouTube space. Because I also feel like gaming and YouTube kind of both benefit, but also kind of not benefit, or benefit in a negative way off each other. But Deep Rock Galactic is an absolute blast. I know it was on sale on Steam. It might still be on sale. I don't know. I recommend checking that out. Because it's a simple game loop, like I said, but it's just really fun to play with your friends. And if you're looking for a game to play with your friends, this is definitely the game. You can goof around, which I definitely miss games like that. A lot of games go for this realism. And I can get that, but I'm more drawn to experience. And this isn't just games. This isn't books. This isn't movies, where if it is something that I'm not going to be able to experience in my lifetime, I am very interested in, looking at a different perspective of it, So I don't know, your Call of Duties, your simulators, like the serious ones, and even books about teen drama and stuff. I just bring that up as different categories. It's things I have experienced or I can experience, and that just doesn't interest me too much. If I want to experience Call of Duty, I'll just go enlist and go to the army, I've already gone through the team drama and all that nonsense. And also I still go through it at work, because funny thing, once you graduate high school and then you go into the working world, you think that, oh, all that high school drama is behind us. No, it follows you. It just goes to older adults who all just love that office drama. And it's just so absolutely frustrating. Because you're like, I'm just trying to do my job. And then, this lady walks over and she's like, "Did you see what Karen was wearing? Did she really think that color would match that dress?" And I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Lady, I'm just trying to finish a report so I can get on my day. I don't care about what Karen looks like. I don't think Karen cares what Karen looks like, but you do." So then she's like, You just wouldn't understand. You're a man. And then goes off to next person, starts it, and it's just this vicious cycle. I was talking about Deep Rock Galactic, and how did I get on the subject of talking about Karen in The Office? Whatever. But Deep Rock Galactic, yeah, give that a gander if you're interested in that. And I'm pretty sure it's Ghost Ship Games. It's great. Honestly, I have no gripes with it. And a lot of games I usually I wish they did this better. Or I wish they would do this better. But it's so simple, but it's so fun. Along with another title, oh my gosh, am I blanking on the name? Hold on a second. Hey, cat, move. Ugh. All right. Yeah, as I said, real professional. I don't even know what I just said because I was looking up the name. Like a game that I really like, and I already forgot the name. Hypercharged Unboxed. It's a game where it's a kind of tower defense or base defense, and you play as a bunch of action figures, and you're running around these environments in houses or in the garage or in the toy store, and you're building up defenses. You're building up turrets. You're building up walls that kind of protect the enemies, which are just a bunch of different kind of toys, from breaking the hyper cores. Which is always interesting because the hypercores are like this tube with a brain in it. But if you're toys, that brain is not a human brain because, it's not huge to the toy's perspective. So, what is it, a cat brain? Are we, experimenting on stuff? And no, we just have cat brains sitting in there. Which that was, a little worrisome. But that is also a very fun time with friends. And, also for, Deep Rock Galactic and Hypercharged, there's no loot box system in them. There's no pay cosmetics, pay to win, any of that kind of stuff, which is super great. Oh my gosh. Games love to tack that on. Even single player games. Bethesda's been doing that a bit. Where they're like, hey, single player, but do you want a skin for this gun? You could pay $5. Why would I do that? The one appeal of skins and stuff like that is to show off to other people when you play. And why would I want to, I'm not playing with anyone, so why would I want to show that off? It just don't make sense to me. But Hypercharged is very much similar to Deep Rock Galactic. Just in kind of the really fun gameplay loop. You get time to build. There's a character and charm to it. I mean, I didn't even get into Deep Rock Galactic's charm where whenever you go back to the hub, which is the space station, you pick your mission, you can go to the bar and order beers. And sometimes the beers will actually benefit you in the next mission. And sometimes they're just beers for fun. There's this one beer I got with it's something gunpowder. And what you do is start exploding. You don't die, you just explode and your character's flying all over the ship and you're flying into things and knocking stuff over. It's fun. And fun's the real bottom line of any experience like that. Another title I actually recently found it's in alpha. You can download it for free if you're listening to this now, which is Gatewalkers. I think that's the name. I think I got it right. And I hope I did, I really hope I did because it is actually a really neat concept, a neat idea, and it works pretty well. But it's an alpha, so you have a lot of stock sound effects. So I guess it's in this mythical land, and the land is dying. So there's these gates, and warriors go through the gates to kind of find new realms to settle down in and these realms aren't on the same planet. They're in a different plane of existence, different reality. They're trying to find a place safe enough for everyone to settle down because the world that you inhabit is dying. Okay, that's cool. Plays a little bit like Diablo, but also whenever you have to attack, you have to kind of aim your cursor and aim your little... it shows a little marking on the ground and near your character. It's top down like Diablo 2. That isometric. You have to actually aim your attacks. There's no auto attack. And at the same time, there was a survival element to it. And what that does is you can battle for a little bit, explore around, and then you start getting tired and you need food. So you can set up a little base camp and you can build some different kinds of like workbenches and stuff. And at first, I didn't like the idea because I thought it would be very intrusive to the like you playing the game, but it actually isn't. It's kind of this like this little side piece, of a mechanic, you know, this little. It's not intrusive, and like you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna need to eat soon. But in some survival games, like when you say that, you look at the meter again in like 2 minutes, and it's down to 0, and you're like, I just looked at that. Why am I starving? You know. And I never understood that about survival games because your character always starves in like the span of 5 minutes, and I'm just like, there's sometimes I go almost a whole day without eating, and my character, who's like surviving out in the middle of nowhere, is starving every 5 minutes. Now, I definitely understand the starving thing, but there's got to be a better way to implement it. And I think Gatewalkers actually does. And the studio behind it actually decided to expand their alpha time. So check that out if you're on the Steam. And there's definitely going to be a segment of any of these podcasts where I just talk about some games I've discovered, some games I've played, just kind of throw out some suggestions and just kind of create a dialogue just between everybody like, hey, these games are pretty tight. Which leads me to my next point, which is the coin game. I don't know if you heard it. It's early access. I know some people feel a certain way about early access, but I watched a video on it. I watched my friend stream it, and that game is a lot more fun than it has any right to be. So it's like you are just this kid living at home, but everyone on the island, it takes place on an island. Everyone on the island is like this kind of meter-made Jetsons looking robot that just kind of like drives around. Which they wear hats, they wear some clothes, they talk to you, but they're robots. Now, I don't know if that is just early access stuff or it's going to be kept that way, but you live in this small town, and then there's like two little kind of citied areas on the outskirts of it. And what you do is you just go around and just play at arcades. And then like there's a survival mode where you gotta just eat food. But the thing is like food is like TV dinners and energy drinks. And then like you have to do small odd jobs to make money so you can play at the arcade. It's a weird concept for this kind of survival game, but like definitely the time that's gone into the game at first was definitely all the arcade machines. And I'm not talking, I guess arcade isn't the right word to use because you're probably thinking Metal Slug, Pac-Man, like those kind of arcade games. And I'm talking more about like kind of those arcade games you find at like Chuck E. Cheese where they milk you for money. The claw machine, that one dome that has the lights around it. And you have to try to hit the light like in that little goal that's right in front of your button. And they're just like all over, and you just have access to just go play all these games and just go wild, which is a lot more fun than it has any right to be. Like, like you get to play those games. You don't have to go out in public, and and this is even before the COVID-19 thing happened. You don't have to go out and see anybody because I'm naturally an introvert. So I still go out and do stuff, definitely. But like big crowds of people, I just get drained real quick. I'm like, all right, I'm done. So like I can play these games. I don't have to worry about spending like $500 just to play them and actually win something. And also, I just get to sit down here and play on my computer and it works pretty well. I mean, there's bugs here and there, but it was actually a really surprising good time. And actually just talking about it like, I want to stop the podcast and go play some coin game. Because the claw machine, I've actually started to figure out, the best spots for the claws. Which, like, now I'm just kind of like those Asian kids. I remember we had Asian foreign exchange students when I was in high school. And, like, when there'd be an event or something, school would take us to a bowling alley and there's a claw machine. That kid was always over there getting all the toys. And he's just like, kids would pay him money to get them toys. It was beautiful. It was like a beautiful mind, like the way he worked. And I'm thinking of one kid especially, and I hope he's doing well because he was the nicest guy. Like no one ever had a problem with him, and he was a big nerd, like huge before nerd became a popular thing and a part of the mainstream culture. which, like, what age am I living in? Where, like, back in my day in high school, I had to hide that I was a nerd, right? I had to hide the times that I played video games all night from some, from just any common conversation, or I had to, you know, when they're talking about a movie in class, they're talking about, like, I don't know, like when the new Star Wars. I remember that. Like it was the prequel trilogy that came out when I was younger, and some kid was talking about it, and he was like, "It's all right," but he had complaints about it, and then he wasn't telling the story right, and I had to like bite my tongue to not be like, push up my glass and be like, "Well, excuse me, actually, this character did this for this reason because the Senate had power over them." Like, it took so much for me not to do that. And also, if you were found out that you were a nerd, you pretty much got the, what is it, like the Scarlet Letter? Like, everyone labeled you as like, look at this nerd. But now, it's cool. Being nerd's cool. Like, everyone's getting into, like, games. Everyone's getting into stuff like that, which I think it's great. My hobby has turned into something that a lot of people want to partake in, which is awesome. I'm not one of those types that is like, I was here first, and my culture is not your trend at the moment. Okay. Like, yes, I had to suffer for what I liked, but also at the same time, this is kind of opening opportunities for kids to be more creative and more, I don't know, willing to pursue things that you might not pursue later because you're afraid of what people would have thought of you, which is like nerd culture's kind of made everything a little more okay for everybody, which I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. And speaking of nerd culture, this is a pretty good segue into YouTube. Like, what the hell's going on over there? Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird how things I like to watch on YouTube. There's a few YouTubers I watch and follow for a variety of reasons. Maybe they just make really funny content. Like General Sam. I always get a laugh out of that guy. A lot of people don't like him because of his very aggressive humor. And just like the kind of character he portrays, a lot of people definitely don't like that. But he's a funny dude. I like to watch kind of documentaries or pseudo documentaries on either games or movies, just kind of like how they were made. I really enjoy. Actually, those are really the things I watch. And if you watch anything like that, anything related to gaming, like, you get the same ads all the time. And I remember when YouTube used to be free. And I remember when YouTube used to have no ads. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like, ads all the time. Every video, you get at least 2 ads. Even if it's like a 10-minute video or less. It's like, we're going to throw an ad in there. And I'm so sick. I'm so sick of Arknights. Like, there's always that ad where just like there's the pause, there's a penguin sitting in the chair, and then like some anime girls jump out from behind the counters, people shoot guns. It's like, the speed of lightning. I don't even know the second words, but I've heard that so many times. I hear it in my dreams, and it is a nightmare. It is a freaking nightmare. Also, I always get the one about guy yelling at me about, what do you think I'm going to eat for dinner? Salad or pizza? And it's really funny. Those only started appearing after I was talking about going on a diet and then actually doing a diet and punching in a few diet questions in my phone, in Google, like, hey, what's good for this kind of diet, And of course, those just start appearing. I'm like, interesting, That just kind of shows how much, NSA, FBI, however you want to put it, are like watching all our content. But I mean, honestly, I got nothing to hide, so I don't really care. it's a violation of my rights, I feel. But at the same time, sure, look at the weird stuff I look at. I don't care. You want to watch me? You want to watch me and check in on me watching ASMR of like a person eating a cucumber? Fine, go for it. Or like one of those sea pickles? Yeah, join me in that horrible experience. But there's kind of like this culture around just being vile and trying to, I don't know, trip up other creators or stuff like this. And I only started to notice this recently after, I'm getting suggestions, other videos and stuff. And also, when games are introduced, people have opinions about them. And I understand that's your livelihood, that's your job. You want to get the most views. So like all of it's really focused on negativity, which ain't really the best thing. I mean, if you're surrounded by negativity all the time, you start to have a negative outlook. If you surround yourself in positivity all the time, you start to have positive outlook. But yeah, that platform's gotten pretty disgusting, honestly. But that's why I don't have a Facebook either. And like, I'll have you know, like as long as I can fight it for as long as I do this, and even if this doesn't go anywhere, like it sure is a podcast won't have a Facebook page. And you're probably thinking like, but then how will people know? How will anyone find out about it? Right. And I have other ways. We got Instagram. We got Twitter. I mean, Twitter's an absolute cesspool. But if I only use it just as a function of, like, throw out, like, hey, podcast up, it's a little easier than... It's a little easier, and my, conscience can be rested that, I'm not falling into the Facebook trap or anything. So that will be coming soon, if it's not already up by the time of recording this. Which, it might not. We'll see. This is a very laid-back experience. And also, how do you do a first podcast, really? Because it's kind of like the first introduction episode to any kind of TV show you watch. And usually I skip them because primarily it's a lot of lore building. It's a lot of giving you background. And I kind of gave you a little background about myself and then kind of what we're going to be talking about, which is like nerd talk, video games, board games, other nerd related topics. And also, I'm going to be having segments and they'll be labeled. So you're not going to get on here and be like, I'm going to listen to see what this asshole has to say today. And then you get me, kind of acting out and reading one of like the short horror stories or something, which, yeah, I won't do that to you. I'll let you know what's going on. You won't ever be kind of surprised when you come into a podcast and you aren't getting what you expect. You want the content of an overweight white male in his basement screaming about video games. Well, not screaming, talking sternly about video games. And also other things I enjoy. And also, definitely, there'll be segments where there'll be whole discussions just on world building and being creative in that sense. Actually, a funny story. My love of board games. I did create a board game I'm pretty sure it's still floating around on the Game Crafter right now. And it's called Fortress Fight. And the whole point of the game is to pretty much build a tower, right? And my friend and I made it, and our other friend helped us test it, so I got to throw him in there too. Like, if he hears that and he's not included, I'm going to get a strongly voiced email with some no words. And that was a really good time. And then after that, I don't know, it kind of spurred my creativity to, like, world build and create, I don't know, whole entire universes and build the lore behind it, which is one I've been working on for quite a while, and I'm trying to find a way to turn it into a board game in which the working title, and I think that pretty much the main title is called Archetype, where it kind of mixes the idea of D&D, but I want to make it very streamlined and very simple for everyone to pick up and play. Now, obviously, there's going to be some things that people are going to have to learn, but also I want you to be able to kind of build your character into different builds. And the archetypes are kind of these, how do I put it? They're these humanoid suits that have different powers and they focus on one thing. I have, I have like whole packets over here just of written stuff about like, what does this archetype do? What does that archetype do? And there's people in the system, and this takes place in the Fornax system. Fornax, Fornax, which is far off from our current system. And there, all the planets have been terraformed by an ancient alien race called the Amarak, and they pretty much have just disappeared. And there's hints like that, where'd they go, and they were kind of messing with some things they shouldn't have, and they kind of prepped themselves for their extinction, but they created the archetypes before they went extinct. And they went with the humanoid idea because their bodies were actually really frail and really weak and weird. And the humans that they kind of discovered, they liked their bipedal kind of structures. They based them off of that. And within the universe, there are wielders, is what they're called, where they're able to kind of just touch the... I swear, if my phone goes off again, I thought I shut this off. Oh my gosh. I apologize. My ADD's kicking in. Just someone yelling at me about, I got the Rona. I might then just stay home. Like, I don't know what to do for you. Where was I now? Oh yeah, wielders have a certain DNA strand that allows them to be able to wield or, pilot these suits. And they don't necessarily, like, the suit doesn't open up and they go in. They just touch it and they become energy and go inside of it. So that's kind of like the universe I'm building up. And then there's a bunch of different alien races. There's the Acanthus, which is this like gross, ugly looking bug race, but they're super intelligent, but they're like pretty much just really smart maggots. So the Amarak actually had contact with them and taught them how to build these like mechanical suits for them to run around in. And they've pretty much just become like pirates and stuff. There's the Vel, who are modified, genetically altered humans coming from Earth who've, came to this spot in space, and they're pretty much like, all right, since we're here, we're going to take over like people do. There's a Wargar, which is very tribal, always looking for the next hunt, kind of like Predator, but they have a very strict code of honor and such in the universe. And there's some other things too. And this is where, this is the kind of stuff we'll be talking about, world building and like things that I've come across, just talking about the creative process. Because also being an artist, and hopefully, people who are listening to this kind of have this, we get in creative ruts. And for the longest time, after going to art school for 5 years and then doing a master's for 4 years that also included art, like, I burned myself out, and it has been almost 1.5 years where I've had no creative ambitions, but now I'm starting to work on a kid's book, collaborating with some people to put some stuff together that's been storyboarded out, and we're finalizing the designs of the characters. We'll also talk about character design too, and like how to make appealing character design and stuff. And I guess the approach that myself is going to be coming to you through this is that, hey, I'm just an average Joe. I don't do this as a career. I do this because it's something I really enjoy. And from there, throw out ideas that, anyone could use. Right now, like I said, I'm literally just hiding in my basement. I have a mic. I have one of those filters in front of it. And I'm pretty sure I bumped it a few times during this whole recording. And I'm just looking at it now, and I think I see a little tear. Maybe. I hope that's not a tear. Anyways, yeah. So I want this to be a creative outlet. And I know a lot of podcasts just go hard in the first episode. But I kind of felt like with this, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about the things we are going to talk about, So if you get on board with this, and also, you can throw out an idea here and there. It's like, hey, maybe you should talk about this. I have this idea about how do I flesh it out. And I don't have all the answers for everything. I have fleshed out the outline of the universe that I created with Archetype, right? And I've started really breaking it down, the Vel, like I said, which are genetically altered humans. And they're distinguished by their arms are a little longer, they're a little taller, and they have a really smooth, almost like alien face. And they can't wield archetypes at all, which then they see wielders as a threat to them because archetypes are super powerful. And also, there's stories and characters I have to start injecting into that world, and then, kind of build the whole kind of board game off of that, which is going to be a D&D like experience, definitely. And I don't know, it just feels real good to be creative, feels real good to actually talk about this stuff. And heck, there may even be a podcast or two where I just, kind of like those, what is his name? My Name is Bife on YouTube. The guy who does the Destiny lore videos and like the Warframe lore sometimes, but mainly Destiny. Do videos like that. Podcasts like that where I just talk about sections of the lore and just talk about the background and everything. Because I feel a lot of stuff is more engaging when it feels like there's something happening outside of the time that you play it. Like there's a whole world, there's whole stories that don't even have anything to do with whatever you're watching or whatever you're playing, And I think, example, I have Destiny 2 that kind of does that really well. Is like they're guns with whole stories behind them. But you don't ever play out the story, you piece together the story by finding, bits and pieces of lore here and there. And that's just, I don't know, that's super fascinating to me. I'm just like, yes, I am all about that. Just that lore building. Because what you're doing is pretty much storytelling. And I love the storytell. I mean, heck, pretty much if you like to storytell, there's a very good chance you like to talk and you like to hear yourself talk. In which I've been doing for, close to an hour right now. Just talking about whatever was on my mind. And whatever we were going to offer. And there'll definitely be people who will be joining me. And once again, these are just average Joes. We all work full-time jobs. We all have student loans to pay off. We all have stuff that goes on in life. So it's very much, it sure is a podcast, nerds in the real world and nerd stuff. Which I also don't think a lot of people kind of compare that, just because a lot of podcasts that I listen to or I've started getting into, like that's their full-time job. But then there's other times it's like, yeah, I had this rough day at work and I compare it to this and blah, 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 Just a very wholesome, very real, very honest experience. And, it sure is a podcast is going to be that step to kind of, as I said earlier, to get out my creative nut that has been so stagnant and just hanging out inside me for all this time. And finally, time for the release. Get all that creativity out. I'm literally looking at my storyboard right now for that kid's book, and my cat's just laying on it. Does not give a shit. Like, can we take a second? Like, I'm going to derail completely for nerd stuff. Like, this cat. Like, him and I have such a parasitic, symbiotic relationship. We hate each other. But he just lays on my stuff. And when he wants something, he'll just climb up there on a table nearby me and just start knocking stuff off. And I look over and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And I tell him no and he gets down. But what he wants is fed. And pretty much this is a CBT thing, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, where you've been trained to do something to get a need met for yourself. You know, I'm going on, therapy, psychology on you right before the end of the episode. And you're probably thinking like, this guy has no consistency. And you might be right. But this cat has been doing that. And I'm thinking like, okay, so how could we teach him to get his needs met without knocking all my stuff off? And then I realized, I stopped. I'm like, this is a cat. This is an animal. Okay. Like, this thing's got like 7-8 years max to live. I've already had it for 5. Like, I got the cat when someone close to me was going through a divorce. I don't know why I got the cat. But when they got divorced, I got the cat. So here we are. He's a jerk. But also, there's some of those days where we're both like having a rough day. And we just need to hang out. We just need to, he sits on my chest if I'm laying on the couch, or if I'm, taking a nap, he's sleeping in my bed. We have those days. But at the same time, like, if that cat right there disappeared, I would not miss him. I'd be like, oh, okay, he's gone, cool. Because I got 3 dogs. Actually, I'm super impressed they didn't bark this whole time. They're right in the other room. And as I said, I'm just doing all this in the all this podcast stuff in the basement. So, all right, we went over the hour mark. That's pretty awesome. I vented about my cat. We talked a little bit about what the channel's going to do. Talked about video games for a bit, what I like. Hopefully you can throw it out there what you enjoy. And be on the lookout for episode 2. That'll be coming out soon of It Sure Is a Podcast, Nerds in the Real World and Nerd Stuff. Hey, and this week, I'm gonna give you a challenge. I'm gonna challenge you to do something. Okay, you ready for it? I want you to go into a very competitive game, whether it's Valorant, CSGO, Overwatch, and just be obnoxiously positive to someone, because people hate that. They don't know what to do. So that's your challenge for you. Go do that, or report back and tell me what's going on. Okay. Bye. See you later. Love you.